Welcome to JK Not Really,
Season 2, Episode 10.
the first episode of 2025.
Can you believe it that we're in the year of 2025?
No, I can't believe that this means COVID was 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. That it was.
I feel like I'm still stuck. Like when I say that out loud, I feel like that feels like it was yesterday
I think for a lot of people, they have similar thoughts and feelings to that.
because it was just such like a interesting time. And then it didn't just like when people think 2020, like it went on for like a couple years, I feel like, of in and out of quarantine and shutdowns and masks. But it's just crazy to think that the first shutdown happened now 5 years ago.
Yeah, because it happened in January, right?
I think it started because I was in Washington at the time, so we lived where it kind of started. So it was I remember talks about it in January, and then in February they had the first confirmed case in Seattle, and then it was like 10 days later we were shut down for what was going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, quote unquote, 2 weeks and then turn into months on end. Actually, I think for Colorado, I remember trying to go out for my birthday in March. And actually, that's when everything was getting shut down.
Yeah.
And we thought it was going to end in like April or May.
Hmm. And it's just crazy how fast, like 5 years, like that's I don't know. It's so cheesy to say, but like time truly does fly.
I think it does the older that you get, acknowledging how fast time goes by. Also, just a little fun fact, it's interesting that some studies are coming out now, and we're looking at social skills for kids, teenagers, and adults, and the effects or lasting effects that COVID has had. And high schools and colleges are actually forming new curriculum to teach individuals how to just socialize and how to talk.
That could not be more accurate. Like with my high school students, when we do something called Socratic seminars, which I love to do in the classroom, it's pretty much just, it's not a debate, but it's an open dialogue, like critical thinking discussion in response to like a shared text or a shared resource. And you arrange the desks in a circle, no one raises hands. I'm not in the conversation at all. It's full student led. And it requires speaking and listening standards. It requires on making eye contact, figuring out what to do when two people speak at the same time and saying, like, oh no, excuse me, you go ahead. Before COVID, those were natural social norms that my students had. I never had to go over what to do when two people speak at the same time. Nowadays, when I do them, I have to make sure that I model that for them to see how to conduct yourself in those situations. And you don't think about that. But when you think about the students that don't have those social skills and they go out into society, like imagine not knowing what to do when you speak at the same time as someone else, or imagine not making eye contact with someone, not feeling comfortable making eye contact at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's insane that you're like noticing that now too, and this distinct change because of it. And I'm even seeing this with my own clients, difficulties engaging with others, difficulties with emotion regulation skills. We're seeing an increase in anxiety and depression as well recently. And then like also like an influx too with individuals thinking that they have ADHD and then being on the spectrum.
I
It's an interesting time.
feel like, and not just pre-COVID, but even just when I was going to college or my first couple of years of teaching, obviously ADHD and the autism spectrum existed in public education. It has for decades, but I don't remember having as many students, more so for me specifically with ADD or ADHD or ODD, um, diagnosed in comparison to what I have now. I definitely see more on my caseload in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. I think social media has a big influence on that as well, because I think individuals are self-diagnosing. We're talking about it more. We're more open as a society. But tailoring back to it's the year of 2025, and I feel as if there's going to be, again, so many distinct changes that happen this year because it happens every single year.
And I think you talked about this on our last episode, kind of the danger of self-diagnosing. Like I totally understand if you see something and you relate to it or align with it, but I think there's a difference in relating to something and then claiming you have that without seeing a medical professional.
It is very dangerous.
Yeah,
However, I do want to input that as human beings, we want clarity, we want answers, we want resolutions. So once we see like a checklist on social media and we're like, oh my gosh, I fit this checklist, automatically you're going to have resolution and feel comfort now, knowing that this mystery is resolved a little bit and that you can move forward
for
instead of
sure.
going to not the extremes, but the proper lengths and speaking to a medical provider, getting testing done, and then get the formal diagnoses.
And I think that's just the missing piece. Like, I agree with everything you said in the sense of like feeling that affirmation and that you're not alone and that there are people like you. I think social media is great for those things. But I think there's this danger in saying, well, I saw this on this reel and I have all of that. So now I'm going to make my own reel talking about how I have that without receiving a diagnosis. And maybe if you went to the medical professional, you might very well have whatever you're relating to, but you might have something completely different.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the human body is so interesting and how symptoms can manifest in so many different ways. To a certain extent, you truly don't know potentially what is really going on. So might as well get an opinion from a medical provider.
And even you talked about too, there are so many similarities amongst different mental illnesses or behavioral disabilities. They can be so similar that unless you do seek out that professional, you might be doing more harm, like somehow miss self-diagnosing in a way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can really touch on this personally because I had some physical health concerns that were very alarming. We didn't know what was happening. And I've been going through procedures after procedures and scans and blood work, and everything's coming back negative. And now all my providers are going back to it seems as if it's a lot of anxiety and PTSD.
Wow.
And my body's finally at a homeostasis that I can finally like release some of the things that have happened in my life, and I'm having these like physical issues now. So we're going to like Eastern and Western medicine moving forward for me.
How does that make you know that married? You just moved into your dream home. And now, like I understand it when you now you feel safe in an environment where you can release. Did you ever see that happening all these years later, especially after marrying the love of your life and moving into your dream home?
I'm kind of at,
That pause was
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah, it does. No, I never would have imagined that my body would be responding like this. Um, But then again, I mean, it does make sense. I always thought that I was in like a safe place, but maybe I did have a guard up. Maybe it was like, what if this doesn't work out? Or what do I need to do to prepare? Because I had that altering life event that happened.
Mhm.
And actually, Steve and I had a really in-depth conversation on New Year's Eve. We were talking about things that we learned about one another, what we want to leave in 2024, what we want to gain in 2025. And I told him one thing that I learned about us is not that I didn't trust you, it's that now I can like fully emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, like really, really trust you. because I always had faith. I always like, I guess, trust to like a 90%, but to really just be so vulnerable and rely on somebody and just say, like, I need you to take care of me, from him taking me to the hospital, to talking to medical providers, to financially helping me when needed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually rely on this person without them getting spiteful and turning back on me.
And I think for you, what you went through, you went from a situation where you thought you could do all those things and being met with that spiteful, resentful behavior, like you said, to getting yourself out of that situation and being fully independent, taking pride in being independent and wanting to do things just on your own for you, to then falling in love and having to change to being okay with being dependent in some ways. So I think for you, when you look at your timeline, it's such a juxtaposition of what you had to go through. So it does kind of make sense to, oh, now we're married. I'm your wife. Like, I also think that there is something to be said for things do change once it's official. There's something about that shift of, oh, we are husband and wife, and this is set in stone, and we exchanged vows. Like, there is a shift. And I think that's normal.
Yeah, like really emphasizing that we're this unit. Like you felt the same way with Andrew, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously when you're engaged, you know, oh, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But there's a difference between the fiance relationship and then the spouse relationship. And it's more so of, I felt in a way too, oh, I can really like pull back the curtain now. Like, this is solid, it's finite, we're in this together. And there comes challenges out of that. There comes to revealing parts of yourself that I don't think maybe your spouse saw before because you were in that fiance relationship and vice versa. And it's just navigating, I think it's a new identity in a way.
Honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. That's a great way to put it because you do so many different jumps from being an individual and like romantic partners than fiancés. And then now you're establishing this new relationship. And as a person, you change with that establishment.
Yeah. And you just kind of start figuring out what are your ideals for a spousal relationship. Maybe they don't line up in every single way. Maybe they line up perfectly in some, but then you have to look at the ways where you're not maybe on the same page. And sometimes those are really hard conversations. But I definitely understand what you're saying in the sense of it's almost like you're a push and pull. It's like, wow, I can exhale because I'm here and I made it and I found my person. But then for you experiencing the trauma that you went through, maybe you were holding back a little bit in some ways when you before this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame myself if I was. I mean, how could I not? I
Right.
needed to protect myself in so many different ways. That's what I ultimately learned.
I just think it's interesting, and I'm sure other people can relate, even though they might not experience the same trauma you went through. But it's almost like, how do you respond when, like, oh, I'm over this. I made it to the other side. I'm so strong. I beat it. And then, like, is it frustrating to feel like, I still have some work to do?
That's a great question. I don't think it's frustrating to acknowledge that you still have some work to do because I truly believe that we're never going to cross that finish line as human beings. We always want to continue to evolve and be better. Um, and also it's very significant how much your body holds on to trauma. And like you can talk about it with a professional, but then there's also like certain things that you also need to involve, like some bilateral movement to have the right and left hemisphere come together to make some more like observations on aha moments. Because sometimes when you're just talking, you're just using one hemisphere of your mind.
Mhm.
And it could be that you feel like you're feeling better. It's been 2 years, and all of a sudden there's a sense there's a sound, there's something that you smell, it's a date, and then your body just has this visual like reaction.
I was just about to
And
say that. I
that's
was like,
so natural.
that visceral reaction, it's so interesting. Like it's we've talked about this before. It's like your body responds sometimes before you've mentally figured it out.
Yeah, and I always tell my clients it's impossible to get rid of your anxiety, your PTSD, your depression, your obsessive thoughts. What we're doing is we're just building distress tolerance. So when that does come, you're not having that heightened reaction anymore. It's a little like lower reaction. You know how to self-regulate, you know how to move forward.
So do you feel like you're in at least a better place now with the sense of you have a plan?
Potentially, it's frustrating because some medical providers are like, it's definitely this. Others are, no, it's absolutely not that. I think it's this. And then other providers are like, it's more trauma and anxiety.
Which one
And
do you think it is?
I mean, all my tests are coming back negative.
Right.
And it has been so sporadic, and it just recently started happening when I was in very stressful, heightened environments. That I feel like it's more like stress and anxiety, to be honest with you.
Which I mean, not that that's not, I'm not going to sit here and ever say stress and anxiety are a good thing, but I think of all the diagnoses you can get, that one might be the most manageable in a way, as opposed to like some other scary situations.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I was talking to Stephen about that last night. I mean, like, looking at the bright side, everything did come back negative. So it's nothing that I need immediate surgery for. It seems as if I'm gonna have to do like physical therapy, a lot of follow-ups,
Just
and
like
just
figuring out,
diet, doing hormone treatment.
just figuring out what works for you.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's all you can do.
yeah, still on this roller coaster of figuring out.
I know. So you said that you and Steven talked about what you want to leave in 2024, what you want to bring into. I
Yeah.
I know you're in the most loving way a little cynical when it comes to New Year's resolutions. Is there anything that you are hoping to resolve or bring into the new year? Or are you still like, absolutely not, they're stupid?
I think it's stupid if you set unrealistic goals for yourself. Like, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to be Mother Teresa. I think that's a little silly. And some people do that because they want to like achieve these like major goals and like change into a new person. I'm just like, you're perfect the way that you are. Maybe set new intentions, maybe manifest something.
I was just about to say, so I've always been like, and again, I think this is just like the Pisces in me that just like lives in a fairy tale world where I'm like,
I hear ya.
you can be whoever you want to be this year. Like that's typically always been me. I think this year I've kind of focused more on intentions, like you said. I think that it's a little bit more realistic. I think you can have so many intentions, whereas like one resolution, I think that's kind of boxing yourself in. Like, why are you only going to work on this part of you? Whereas opposed to with intentions, you can kind of put out that positive change energy, whatever you want to call it, into multiple different facets of your life. So I'm kind of a little bit of a shift for me last year, but if anyone likes resolutions, we're not like anti-resolution. We're anti unrealistic resolution.
It's a great way to say it. So, what are your intentions then for 2025?
And that leads me to like, I don't want to be cliche. Like when I think about last year, I'm like, I want to just get super fit and I want to meditate every day. Like I could punch myself in the face for making those comments because that's not me as a person. Like,
That completely goes to what I just said. These
yeah,
unrealistic goals, because that's not you.
it was me. Like, and that's where like you would look at me and you'd be like, let me know how that goes. Like, talk to you on the second Friday when they call it like loser day or whatever. Because they do. They say the second Friday of the new year, that's when everyone like gives up. So they call it like loser day.
Oh my God, you'll be the number one loser.
100%. I win. What's my prize?
I was
Because
just about to say, what do I get?
yeah, because yeah, I think I just like I fall into this habit of just being like super cliche and unrealistic with myself. So I think I want to break that. So I think some intentions that I want to set for myself is just truly trusting the process. I think I'm starting my fertility journey right now. Like we're definitely shifting into wanting to start a family. And that requires putting a lot of trust into something you really don't have a lot of control over,
Yeah,
which is very difficult for me,
I was just about to say that I could imagine how difficult and anxiety provoking this is going to be for you.
which only makes it worse. Like studies show, like mind, body, soul, if you want to be open to conceiving, like anything else with our cycles, stress impacts our cycles and our hormones and all of the sort. So I think, we've been trying for a little bit. And I think that I definitely hit a wall where, oh, these are my fertile days. And I almost was like fixated on it.
Hmm.
And everything's starting to feel like much more of like a chore or like a checkbox or a science experiment. Like it definitely, I wasn't going into it, leading with like love or dreaming about being a mom or oh my gosh, we're going to have this beautiful blessing. Like I think that's the mindset and the intention I need to start putting first,
Hmm.
as opposed to these are the days that I have and I have like it has to happen and just like thinking super almost numerically in a way.
Yeah, and I think that takes away the passion too and the lust that you can have with your partner.
Yeah, which I think typically, we've talked about this in the past, like physical touch is not my love language. So that's something I've always struggled with to begin with. And then if you just add the stress of the way my brain works and wanting to control everything on top of it, it's really a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I was gonna say you probably just like completely shut down and then avoid and mask.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for that
You're,
affirmation.
you're, you're welcome. I
So
can definitely see that.
yeah, so I think just, trusting the process and that can expand into so many different facets of my life, like not just with fertility. That could just be with being in the military and just dealing with teaching. I think that's what I want to do. I want to pick an intention that I can remind myself in many different situations.
I think that's so beautiful and good for you for really like sitting and thinking about it because it seems like you took your time
Mhm.
to really set what intentions you want to bring into 2025.
Yeah. I think it's, we've talked about this more so, I think, in season one, just kind of like there's space to call yourself out.
It's always needed though, right? That's how you're gonna grow.
What about you? What are your intentions?
My intentions, and again, I think this can go into multiple facets of my life, is to really acknowledge my inner dialogue and to make sure that I am not bullying myself
I
because
was
I
gonna
am my
say,
biggest bully.
I was gonna say sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I
I'm the big,
feel.
I'm the biggest loser, and you're the number one self sabotager. So it's okay. You're in good company.
We're great at it. Yeah, but I notice like some days I'm just so negative about myself and I constantly like state, why am I not doing this? I'm not a good person. I need to do better. Why do I look like this? And like comparing myself to everybody. And then I truly acknowledge at the end of the day, like none of that shit matters. And that I'm just losing so much focus on what does matter and who I am as a person, how I want to continue moving forward. So I'm really trying to shift that mindset and to be more present with it too.
Yeah, comparison is the death of joy.
Yeah.
Like it will just suck the life out of you, no matter
Yeah.
what it regards.
Yeah. And I'm also, I told myself once I turned 32, I wanted to be like more authentic and truly like me. And I think I was able to do that slowly. And I really hope with this intention, I can like build on that too. And to really come into like who I am and not really caring what other people think and not comparing myself to others. Thanks.
I think that's just the journey of our 30s too. I think there's something to be said for that. I always like never believed it when I was in my 20s of like your 20s are when you're younger and you're still going out and you think that like oh your 30s are so old, but there's something to be said with coming into your 30s and just feeling a little more grown up.
Honestly, I've been loving my 30s. This has been the best. I know it's only been almost 2 years by now, but it's been the best so far compared to my 20s. Like I feel as if like I'm well established at my job, like financially secure. I know who I am more. I have like a person that I love and trust.
Just moved into your dream home.
Yeah. I can't believe you even said that, like that we built our own dream home at the age of 30 and 32.
I know. And that's where you got to give yourself more grace, and myself included. And I think any like it's so easy to just focus on the moments of not feeling good enough and comparing yourself to other people. But and you just like make a list of all that you've accomplished. I think you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that and giving yourself some more credit for what you're doing.
Yeah, I think there's a humble brag is fine.
It's needed.
Call yourself out and then give yourself a humble brag.
It's all about balance, baby.
We're here. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening to our first episode of the new year. We're going to have many more juicy ones to come.
That's for sure. So I hope that you all have had a good New Year's Eve and good New Year's Day, and let's start the new year right based on what you want for this year.
Set those intentions.
Hmm.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.